If you watch the news this past week, all the headlines have been about LGBTQ in Ghana. Following the visit of the Vice President Kamala Harris to Ghana and the conversation that she started, it has sort of rekindled and revived the conversation about the Pride community, their rights and their place in the African traditional society and the African modern society as we know it right now. Now, a lot has changed within the first 2 years leading to this date. A couple of years back, the president of Ghana had taken a very hard stand on LGBTQ. And for those who do not know, the president of Ghana, Akuffo-Addo, sides heavily with the church because the church has a great influence on Ghana, not just in terms of spirituality, but politics, leadership, and governance. And this is what he had to say.
I've said this before, and let me in conclusion stress again that it will not be under the presidency of Nana Addo Akufo-Addo that same-sex marriage will be legal. That same-sex marriage will be legalized in Ghana. It will never happen in my time as president. Let me repeat. It will never happen in my time as president.
Fast forward, 2 years later, the tune has changed. And the reason why the tune has changed is because the position that Ghana is currently, it's looked at as the up-and-coming hub of West Africa, and in the international community, Ghana is having a lot of grace and favor because the president knows how to talk when he goes to these public platforms. He knows how to sell the country, how to sell the agenda. Ghana prides itself in being a very democratic country. Freedom of speech, political peace and stability and tolerance is the order of the day here. And so if you can be tolerant and accommodating to all the other things, why can't you be accommodating to the rights and the existence of the pride and the queer community? And every time he has done international interviews, the issue comes up over and over again. And over the years, we've seen him sort of soften his stance on LGBTQ. And most recently, when Vice President Kamala Harris was in Ghana, the question came up, and the way Kamala Harris answered the question sort of set our President Akuffo-Addo, because the way she answered the question, there was no way that the president could have taken another direction without shooting himself in the foot. Anyway, let's listen to what both of them had to say.
I have raised this issue, and let me be clear about where we stand. First of all, for the American press who are here, you know that a great deal of work in my career has been to address human rights issues, equality issues across the board, including as it relates to the LGBT community. And I feel very strongly about the importance of supporting the freedom and supporting and fighting for equality among all people, and that all people be treated equally. I will also say that this is an issue that we consider, and I consider, to be a human rights issue, and that will not change.
Ms. Young, so thank you for the question. First of all, we don't have any such legislation here in Ghana. A bill has been proposed to the Parliament of Ghana, which has all kinds of ramifications, which is now being considered by the Parliament. It hasn't been passed, so the statement that there is legislation in Ghana to that effect is not accurate. No legislation. The bill is going through the Parliament. It's going through the Parliament. The Attorney General has found it necessary to speak to the committee about it regarding the constitutionality or otherwise of several of its provisions, and the Parliament is dealing with it. At the end of the process, I will come in. But in the meantime, the Parliament is dealing with it. And I have no doubt that the Parliament of Ghana will show, as it's done in the past, first of all, its sensitivity to human rights issues, as well as to the feelings of our population, and will come out with a responsible response to the proposal. The legislation was a legislation that has been provided as a private member's bill. This is not an official legislation of the government, but it is one that has been mooted by a handful of private members. So we will see what the final outcome of it. But my understanding from a recent discussion I had with the chairman of the committee, that substantial elements of the bill have already been modified as a result of the intervention of the Attorney General. We will see what the final outcome will be, and that is the stage at which I will also have the opportunity to prevent.
You can just tell the change of tonation, even the body language. He's more relaxed, he's not as aggressive, and he's not defensive. Kamala Harris already set the stage by saying this is a human right, and if you say any other thing that contradicts that, then the media is going to run with it, international community is going to brand you and term you as the person who's not very keen to uphold human rights in your country. I don't know if that makes sense, because at the end of the day, these are people and you have to protect them. Ghana has been in the headline in Martha's Pride community and their rights and well-being with regards to their LGBTQ bill. Uganda most recently passed a bill, and theirs is a little bit more harsher than the Ghanaian bill. The Ghanaian bill that was proposed by Ningo Pram Member of Parliament Sam George dictates that Ghanaian family values and proper sexual rights have to be upheld. Now, under the chieftaincy that governs the customs and traditions of Ghana, marriage should be between a man and a woman, and the bill will prohibit marriage of a man and a man. The bill will also prohibit people from the pride community from adopting children. It will also ensure that they cannot start families in whichever way. We've seen gay couples, mothers or fathers be able to have children even biologically, but the bill will prohibit that. The bill further goes on to put a gag order on media houses and NGOs that will do any advocacy work with regards to the right of people in the queer community. And so this bill was proposed, and Akuffo-Addo in his speech, if you listen, said, oh, we've reviewed the bill and we're sort of watering it down and we'll ensure that it's a tolerant bill in as much as it should reflect the Ghanaian values and the Ghanaian society. We're going to ensure that it's still mindful of human rights. And the proprietor of the bill, Sam George, came out guns blazing, calling Akuffo-Addo like a hypocrite and calling out the American hypocrisy and saying, listen, the bill is still as rough and as tough as it was. And the president had an opportunity to call out the West and tell them that he has sworn allegiance to the Ghanaian constitution, and this is what the Ghanaian constitution dictates. But instead, he played second fiddle to the American vice president for his own personal agenda or whatever national agenda he wants to make out of it. Anyway, let's listen to what Sam George had to say.
Well, two things. I thought that President Akuffo-Addo would have used this opportunity to send a clear message to the world and to the country that his fidelities to the Ghanaian people and to the Constitution of Ghana, the 1992 Constitution that he swore an oath to uphold, and would have sent a clear message that Ghana is not going to entertain any expressions of homosexuality. And then secondly, I expected that he would have shown, it was known that this would have been a topic, and I expected that he would have shown that he was on top of his brief. On the 2 points, President Akuffo-Addo goofed and failed. First and foremost, on the point of knowing his brief, the president said that the bill has been substantially changed and that it's a private member's bill. And, well, the president doesn't know what he's talking about. The bill has not been substantially changed. The bill remains as tough and as rigid as it was. The focus of the bill has not changed. The objective of the bill has not changed. His Attorney General has given the bill a clean bill of health. At the last meeting that we had with the Attorney General is on record to have stated that he's happy with the position of the bill and that the bill was going to deal with discrimination in our current legal jurisprudence and expand the frontiers of our legal jurisprudence. So clearly the president needs to check his brief on the bill. When the bill is laid before the House, you realize that the focus of the bill, which has to do with voiding marriages, preventing them from adopting children or fostering children, the clamp down on platforms and media houses that are going to do promotion and advocacy or push those materials still remains in force. All expressions of it, be it lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, are all here, are all in there. So when he says the bill has been watered down, he doesn't know what he's talking about. One. Two, when the president says that the failed to tell her point blank that Ghana is not going to listen to what she says. I mean, Mrs. Kamala Harris should be the last person to come and talk about human rights in Ghana. Barely 2 hours ago, in the country where she's vice president of the United States, a Ghanaian woman, a lady in her 20s, walked into a school with pits, shot and killed 3 school children and 3 adults. Those are the human rights of her country's citizens that Kamala Harris should be worried about. She's vice president of America, and on a daily basis, more people die from gun violence in the U.S. than malaria kills in Africa or in Ghana. That should be of concern to her. Kamala Harris is a woman of color. If she wasn't a senator first or wasn't the vice president of America, she most likely could have possibly been a victim, like other black Americans like George Floyd, of white police brutality because she's a woman of color. Those are the human rights issues Kamala Harris should be worried about, because those are what the people who voted for her in America are expecting for her to focus on. Right. Deal with the senseless gun killing in the U.S. of school children. Children's lives matters, black lives matters. Those are the things Kamala Harris should be thinking about. And so Ghana's president should not be finding it difficult to tell her in her face, like other African presidents have, to even presidents of America, that look, my fidelity is to the constitution of my country and not what you think. So if Kamala Harris thinks that LGBTQ issues are issues of human rights, that's her opinion. Her opinion is not worth any paper written on the paper on which is written in Ghana. Right. What matters in Ghana is the 1992 constitution. And the president must remember, that is what he swore an oath to, not the opinion of the U.S. vice president. The U.S. they're cowards. The United States is a coward country. Why didn't they issue threats to Qatar? Why did they not stop their U.S. male team from playing in Qatar? Why did they not issue sanctions against Qatar? Are they not trading with Saudi Arabia? Is Saudi Arabia not one of their biggest traders? Is the U.S. not selling arms? The U.S. sells over almost $1 trillion of military hardware to Qatar and Bahrain. Is it not hypocrisy? In those countries, homosexuality is punished by death. So why are they coming to flex their muscles on African countries that are saddled with poor leadership that has made us a poor countries? They're cowards. Cowards are the ones who look for weaklings to fight on them. If America wants to flex its muzzle, it will flex its muzzle on Turkey. It will flex its muzzle on Russia, which has also banned homosexuality. It should flex its muzzle on Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Bahrain, who punish homosexuality by death. And then we will take America serious. But I mean, if you want to flex your muscle on weaklings, you're a coward. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, when it comes to our debt situation, why are we begging the IMF for $3 billion over 3 years? It's simply because we have a presidency and a government that has been profligate and has been reckless with its spending. The amount of and graft in our government, if we even dealt with 50% of it, we would not need to be going to the IMF. So President Akuffo-Addo has laid his bed, he will lie in it. It is his own responsibility to clean the mess in his government and take us out of an IMF program. It is not for us to bend over our cultures and tradition because he has been reckless with his spending and live like an Arabian night when he doesn't have the resources for it. So that is neither here nor there. We won't trade our culture and tradition because we have a reckless president. No.
Now, this matter is a very heavily politicized matter, and the bill will be debated before Parliament before it is passed. And if you want to know that things are going to get a little bit tough before they get better, is even the Speaker of Parliament, Bagbin, has come out to say that whatever the president said was just him being a politician and saying what he needed to say, because with the bill being tabled in Parliament, they're not going to allow members of Parliament to be intimidated. They're going to ensure that members of Parliament just debate the bill in the most political and democratic way. And from the way he sounded, it's like they're very much looking forward to passing the bill and ensuring that it comes to pass and becomes a law. And he said that the president is not going to interfere with the bill. They will ensure that they pass the bill, and it's up to the president to append his signature for it to become a law. But he also sort of disproved some of the things that the president was saying in terms of laws are made in Parliament, and Parliament and only Parliament has the right to make laws, and nobody else can twist and turn that in a way that works or favors them.
We need to legislate. Our friends just passed their law in Uganda. We may not go the way they have gone because our constitution is very clear as to the direction we should move. And so we'll be guided by that. Because if we pass any law against the constitution, it's unconstitutional. So we have to do that. And so what are you afraid of? If you have the whole people behind you, if God is with you, who can be against you? And if God says, please go into the wilderness, multiply and fill the world, that is God giving you that command. If somebody says, please don't multiply, how can that person be strong? I don't only speak this way in Ghana. Even at the last meeting we attended in IPU at Bahrain, anybody who listened to my speech, there were sentences on this matter. Luckily, maybe because it's a Muslim country, they applauded me. If it's somewhere else, they will be asking questions. As the vice president just did, is it yesterday? I mean, these things should not be tolerated. That is undemocratic. What is democracy? That somebody else will have to dictate to me as to what is good and what is bad? Unheard of. Because we have decided to devalue ourselves and go a-begging. Come on. We have more than enough. God has created more than enough for every person. It's just because you are looking at somebody else's share, not yours. We have enough in the world. The bill will be passed. This is the word to His Excellency the President. There is no way he can intervene. That answer he gave. That is now before Parliament. And when he gets to a stage that he will come in, hey, please. This is legislation. This is not execution. Wait until we pass it and then we direct you to execute it. That is when you come in. That is why we are representatives of the people. So in terms of law, which is part of policy, we finalize it. And then the executive now have the authority to implement it, to execute it. Let's get this clear. Once this bill is before here, he is not in charge. I am in charge. I hope the U.S. Vice President is not yet gone, but she will read from me.
This issue of imposing on us their queer culture.
What do you mean by queer culture?
Queer culture, look, how do you see, Adam, as we sit here, you want a partner, right? You want a partner. Then you just look at this man with his dry head. Instead of cooking tea. Yeah, you see this man with his dry head and say that man to man. Or you see Saka, and you say that you want to marry Saka. It's not acceptable in any part of our African culture.
According to their culture, sexuality is a choice.
Fantastic. So keep it in your culture. Keep it in your land. Why are you imposing it on other people that is not part of their culture? If you are a Ghanaian, you are a Nigerian, and you want to enjoy your homosexuality life, jump into the countries that will tolerate you. Within our culture, it's not permissible. I have not seen any African or black man in any of the Western countries jump in to say that you have to legitimize the issue of polygamous marriage. Because in their part, it's not acceptable. And you don't see blacks jumping and saying that because it's acceptable within our culture and our traditions, we want it to be a universal problem or a universal solution so that men across the globe can decide that they can marry. Have you seen that being promoted anywhere? So why are they imposing on us what we consider as an abnormality? When people are abnormal, you grant them compassion. You want to heal them. And so where we sit in our cultural settings, we see homosexuality as an abnormality and that they need compassion and they need to be healed. We don't see it as a right. So for Kamala Harris to come and sit in Ghana and be telling us that homosexuality is a right, and President Akuffo-Addo saying that we will consider those rights, President Akuffo-Addo is running away.
Thank you very much. My name is Ndiro Ganga. I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning. That's how heated this topic is. You can find me on social media at Ndiro Ganga, or you can come over to my YouTube channel at Ndiro Ganga, where we do videos on the diaspora community relocating to Africa and occasional vlogs on what it is like to live life in Africa as somebody who's just migrated or moved back to the continent. I'll see you again next time.